Welcome back. This is Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. This morning in studio, privileged to have the presence of Senator Richard Onyonka, Kisii County. Good morning, Senator.
Thank you, Ayub. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Lovely having you here on a momentous day. Looking forward to the events that will be transpiring, and also Senior Counsel Abdikadir Mohammed. Good morning.
Good to see you, Abu.
Thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Let's begin with a look at what has been happening and largely informs the front pages of the publications. And on page 5, the GenZs of the Daily Nation, that is why we are back on the streets. They say that we can only negotiate with the president until we will not negotiate with the president until the killer cops are punished. This is in relation to some of the deaths that have been recorded so far across the country, and more than 600 who are in police custody and who the clergy says ought to be released for the dialogue to happen as called for by the president on Saturday. And coming to you first, Senator, and picking up from this point, seems that despite the framework that has been laid by the government, it seems there's no goodwill also, to the extent of now more than 600 Kenyans who are in custody. But the GenZs are saying we can only come to that negotiating table when your hands are clean.
Good morning, Ayub, and good morning, my brother, Senior Counsel Abdikadir, who I spent a lot of wonderful times at the National Assembly. The truth is, this is a momentous time for our country. It's a momentous time because, one, it needs exceptional intervention. It needs exceptional interpretation of what's going on. In another language, I would say it needs men and women of wisdom to get us out of where we are. The truth is, personally, I am not shocked about what is happening, for the simple reason that before that, I had talked about it here, Ayub. I had raised my concerns, and that came out of the fact that the information that this country has, including the government machinery, if they were very careful and they were observing and watching the trends, the political trends and economic trends for our country, they would have noticed that we are on the 20-year cycle again. We had reached a stage where our country is at a position where it's either going to tip and go down the lake, or it is going to tip and picks up. And how I would wish that we would tip going up. And I've been watching, and like every Kenyan is watching.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about people in the diaspora, you're talking about other governments. This whole exercise has actually brought in another dimension. It's now becoming Pan-African. It's now becoming, oh, you mean Kenyan youth can do this? It's now beginning to make very many people begin to look at technology. What is the relevance of technology in terms of our lives today? And what has just happened, Ayub, is that the Kenyan youth have basically told the government of their day that we don't want stories, that we want corruption to stop. They have told leadership, the Kenyan governments don't want to see us. They don't want to talk to senators, they don't want to talk to members of parliament. Why? Because we are part of the problem. So anybody who's going to look at this thing, yes, we are going to look at this thing that we hold Ruto responsible because he's the president, he's the head of state. But I can assure you, Ayub, it's the whole ruling elite in this republic. You're going to have to decide whether you are going to have a country with the rule of law, that a country that has no corruption, that a country that is equitable, fair and just, a country that is going to take care of its most vulnerable. If you do not attack and deal with these issues now, President Ruto can forget that these youths are going to listen to him. Why? They have no jobs. Where are they? They're in the streets. What are they doing? They're hungry. They listen to Giuliani. He's talking about niko na njaa, siwezi kulala. These are the realities that these youths are facing. And then what are we doing? We as the ruling class who are advantaged have now moved in. What are we doing? We are behaving as if we are cowboys. We are driving in the most expensive cars in the world. We are living in houses which are unbelievable. We are posting things on social TV about fundraisings and how we carry money in gunny bags to fundraisings. The youths have just told us, they are our mirror. They have told us, look at our churches. What have the priests become? What are the members of the mosques become? What have we become as Pentecostal churches? When we are preaching about how to become rich, that God wants you to become rich, and in fact you can do anything to become rich, and you need to pray. And yet this culture where we are actually telling people they can actually, yes, become rich, but if you have an opportunity to steal resources from the state, then it is God who has rewarded you. This belief that we have, that when somebody is walking on the streets and you look at them and they look like they're running mad, you think it is because they're running mad. No, it's because you have made them become mad.
Okay.
So that is where these youths are. And unless President William Ruto gets the hand of God on him, we are in a mess.
Senior Counsel, coming to you. If you look at some of the demands that the GenZs have highlighted, for example, the point of dialogue, talk with us, we have problems. They largely pointed out governance issues. Now they are demanding for the release of those who are in custody, the police officials who are accused of shooting innocent protesting civilians to be brought to book. Still, it seems that they are not contented.
Yes.
What then are we not seeing from the perspective of these GenZs and young Kenyans, from governance perspective, that we must address going forward, even as the framework of this dialogue is laid by the government?
Well, thank you very much. And largely, I agree with the Senator. I think his finger right on the button. Excuse me. I think it's an inflection point. We could go left or right. We could go on a slippery slope, essentially. We could go how Sudan went, or we could really, this could be a very hopeful moment, so to speak. These young people are absolutely right, and they are the hope for the country. How this is driven forward is very critical for everybody, including them. As I say many times, our Katiba resolved the legal issues, but our cultural ethos, our political ethos, governance, accountability, corruption, these are huge cultural issues that these young people are seeing and that require resolution, so that our politics as is now is not good for purpose. Our institutions, especially, and I know Senator for a long time, and I have a lot of regard for him, but the institution Senator serves in Parliament, not necessarily the Senate, Parliament. It's one of the biggest letdowns, because Parliament essentially was supposed to be the people's watchman, the people's watchdog, and the people's watchdog abdicated to. So I think the critical point for all of us as Kenyans is, how do we benefit from the hopeful moment ushered in by the young people's agitation, and how do we avoid slipping down that slippery slope to destruction? This is really the moment, and it's a very critical moment, and it's a short period, and I agree with Senator, what is needed absolutely is wise leadership and wise minds, both among the governing class, and to an extent among the young people also. So that what we want is to improve things. What we want is the people are celebrating the young people. The people are jubilating for the young people and with the young people. Time has come for the young people to understand also that comes with responsibility. Power comes with responsibility. Power without responsibility, they say, is the province of the prostitute. It's only the prostitute who has power without responsibility. It's a common phrase. But what we want is power that comes with responsibility. How do we go forward from here as a country so that we benefit from the critical issues they have brought on the table? We benefit from resolving the critical issues they have brought on the table. Going forward, their demands are absolutely fair. Number one, if you have killed anybody, anytime anybody dies, our criminal law is somebody must be responsible.
Okay.
Somebody must be held responsible. There must be an inquest. There must be an inquiry. And if there's somebody who is responsible, that person must be fined. That's a perfectly reasonable demand. The rest of the young people, if you are demonstrating peacefully and you are arrested, you are wrongfully arrested, you ought to be released. On the other hand, if you destroyed somebody's shop or if you destroyed somebody's property, the law is equally applied.
Okay.
It is not applied to you because you are young or you're old. Of course, there are certain ages below which you are not criminally responsible, but so long as you are an adult, that responsibility comes. So the idea is, I think, how do we focus on this point so that we have a country that has benefited out of this phase? This inflection point takes us to the right place, not to the wrong end.
Okay, and then let's, and you largely pointed out the role of Parliament, which is very central and consequential. We'll look at our constitutional architecture and the arms of government they are in. But if you look at the recently concluded talks at the Bomas of Kenya, the National Dialogue, the committee NATCO came up with a report which largely addressed constitutional issues rather than the economic problems that the young people who are the face of the opposition protests had largely rallied behind the Azimio coalition. For example, it was about the cost of living, bringing those who were brutally murdered by police, get them justice, bring those who are culpable to the books. But it seems that they are also watching a political class that is largely hell-bent on addressing political issues rather than the very same issues that touch on the fabric of the society. And is this what's driving this course? Absolutely.
I think there are many of us who were at the point where we were wondering whether, I mean, if you live in this country, it's like people live on two different planets. The political class and a few people who are in the right live in one planet, and everybody lives in another planet. Government is not working as is, and we have to correct the ship of government. Now, the hope was that the new constitution and the new regime of laws would do that. That came in, and we have a government that really doesn't care about the laws. We're supposed to have an IEBC in place long ago. How come we don't have it in place? There's absolutely no reason. Absolutely no reason why we don't have, other than the fact that the government of the day has no respect for the Constitution. We have reports from the Auditor General or from the Controller of Budget or from many other institutions. It's because the government doesn't really care. The implementation of these issues are with the executive. The oversight is with Parliament. Both of them have failed. I usually say there's a reason why KRA is very efficient and the EACC is in limbo, because the government of the day is interested in having KRA efficient. Without KRA, they don't get the money. But they have no interest in the accountability side. Now, how do we do that? The idea was our constitutional infrastructure is such that the institutions are supposed to make each other work, and they're supposed to be a watch on each other, and they're supposed to check each other's excesses. When you remove Parliament out of the equation, because essentially Parliament is off the table right now. Parliament exists only in name, only in the fact that my colleagues, my good friends, Senator, my Senator, I hope he'll forgive me, but they are there only in name. Parliament, the Senate has a limited role, but the key house that has the key function on the budget is the National Assembly, and the National Assembly has basically taken off. You saw how parliamentarians who one day before were willing to die to pass this bill. Cheer. Cheer when the president says, I think everything you have done is rubbish. I am sending it back and I'm telling you to delete every, you're clapping, to delete every item. I mean, that's a completely unheard of. Parliament's committee chairs are chosen in State House. It's supposed to be an election. When I was in Parliament and my colleague, and we used to vote for the chairs of the committees. I have served on committees. And I have been chairing committees, and I was elected, and they were competitive. Of course, the political groupings will have a role, But it's a competition. It's voted for. And it's a secret ballot. I was voted for. I was in the PNU side, but I was voted for by ODM members because secret ballot. Now that is no longer there. There's a list of committee chairs issued by State House when the new House sits.
Yeah.
And you go to State House for direction.